What if I told you that who you are today is a byproduct of your childhood conditioning? All of who you are today is a byproduct of your childhood conditioning. And that conditioning is a powerful blend of narcissistic abuse, deeply infused with patriarchal values that are basically the oppression of young girls before they even know the power they hold within. When raised in such systems, we learn that our value is in being pleasant, palatable, of service, and of course, we link our self-actualization to being chosen, meaning our final destination and our most incredible expression of who we are, our self-actualized self, is getting married, being chosen, and having children. But what if I told you that this isn't your path? Or it can be, but only if decided with eyes open, aware, and from a place of power, rather than of fear. On this channel, I talk about narcissistic parents and emotionally immature parents. And I've been trying to help you understand how, if you're a woman raised in these toxic systems, you don't just get abused by a narcissistic parent. You're getting indoctrination, a patriarchal indoctrination that makes you become the type of woman the patriarchy wants. A meek version of yourself, a very small, a very different version of who you would have been if you weren't forced into roles that both serve the narcissistic family system as well as the patriarchal societies that we live in. So through my work, I'm hoping to get you to understand the link between these two and to kind of see that who you are becoming and the ways in which you're even thinking are very heavily influenced by systems that were formed in order to oppress you and to keep you away from your own power. And this is not a conspiracy theory, right? Because this is in actuality an observable fact when we see women live the way that we do live, and we see how women are living under a shadow, chasing their own tails. They want to be chosen, they have to be young forever, they are servants in their own homes, they have to be devoted, they have to be quiet, and all of that is met with an unequal sort of balance in between what they're getting in return versus what men do and get. So a system that is like that is not something that just happens the moment we go in our workforce or the moment we are an adult. It starts early, and it starts by being unconsciously instilled in us by our parents who have had the same exact indoctrination. Both men and women leading patriarchal households, the toxic and narcissistic households, are very much influenced by gender roles, hierarchy, and are believers of women becoming a certain thing that is malleable, oppressed, and is of use. So in my past video, I've explained how, what are the signs that you are raised in a home that held those patriarchal values. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through what it's like post leaving that house, right? Because how we are raised does not stop affecting us the moment our childhood is over. It continues on by how we've adapted, by being raised in these households, right? We come out of these childhoods oppressed, make versions of ourselves. And after going through so much indoctrination of staying small, we shrink. Eventually, we shrink. We become palatable and of service, because back home, if we were to not do all of that, we would have been rejected by the authority figure, the patriarch, the dictator parent that groomed us by sort of enforcing in us to become supportive actresses in this irrational play where men star and we serve. The irrational, tragic play we call patriarchy. So if you haven't watched the first video in which I lay out the things that were happening at home that possibly sort of groomed you into this position, I would advise you to go check it first before you come to this one. And if you have, well, this time around, we're going to be seeing the signs in your adult life. So how have those teachings and how did that influencing and how did all of that conditioning play out And now that you've become an adult and a full-grown woman, at least age-wise, you are experiencing the aftermath of that childhood, right? So a few of the things are, the first of the things that you will sort of identify is that you cannot stop overfunctioning. In relationships, in friendships, everybody else's emotional needs seems to be your priority in life. You take on the responsibility of everyone and anyone. You become the therapist, the fixer, the one holding it all together for everyone, right? So, and it feels like this is a role and a responsibility that you have to take. It's not like, oh, I'm just willingly doing this. It feels impossible not to do that, which means that as an effect of that, you feel very guilty of taking up space, of asking for help, or existing even, or even saying no, right? If you're not unable to help someone because you feel so responsible for how they're feeling or whatever is happening to them, you feel incredibly guilty. And therefore, that guilt is mobilizing you to try and fix things for that person so that they can feel good, and then you can feel good yourself. Which of course means that you're going to override your own needs to maintain this type of peace and avoid disapproval, and avoid also your visceral sense of guilt because of that overbearing responsibility you have of other people's experiences. So you minimize your own desires, you don't ask for what you want, or if you do, of course, you feel guilty, you feel undeserving, you're going to pay it back 10, 15,000 times because it doesn't feel logical to you that you're just receiving without having to give something back. You struggle to trust yourself. You struggle to, you need constant reassurance or permission to exist, to think, to have individual thoughts, right? Independent thoughts. And you are very much obedient to authority, whether it's a parent, a partner, or even your inner critic, which is playing the role of your parent 24/7, sort of forcing you to be good. You have this voice inside your head constantly criticizing everything you do with this, and the scale that it holds is perfection. You're constantly measuring yourself based on how well you're doing, and the bar is perfection, which is something you never reach. And it's an insane expectation that you put to yourself, and you want to do every single thing perfect, as if for everything that you do, every thought you're having, every movement, every decision, there is an audience. And that audience also has judges that they're going to give you grades and are going to tell you if what you're doing is right or wrong. So you don't feel like you are just you as a person. You're constantly feeling like you're performing. So you're not allowing yourself to be yourself, arguably the self that you don't even know you are, in the comfort of your own home, because you constantly feel watched, because you are watched, right? This invisible man in our heads that patriarchy instills starts from the parent that we instill that is so judgmental, but the expectations that it has is of perfection, of being good to others, of never losing your temper, of never saying no, and all of these things, all of these impossible expectations that you force yourself to sort of live up to. And of course you don't, but you're trying to, which is why so many women end up getting so sick, right? And Gabor Mate wrote a lot about this in his book, When the Body Says No. Recommended. You feel guilty taking up space. You feel like you're too much. You are always censoring your own voice, thinking and rethinking before you say something. You are possibly in workplaces where you're overworked and not as appreciated. And although you're doing a great job, people may say thank you or whatever, but you're not being compensated properly. You're not being treated like the skilled person that you are. You're being treated as an assistant, even if you have roles that are not assistant-based roles, and even if you are possibly running the whole office. You are hyper aware of being liked, chosen, and perceived as good. And there's this sort of fear that people will look at you and think you're bad, right? You're constantly afraid that you will do something that will make people think that you're bad. Now, another thing that you're possibly doing in your day-to-day life, if you are in a relationship, you're possibly in a relationship with a man that is, okay, how do I put this? But he's probably so not invested in putting in effort, and you're the one doing all the work. You're doing so much work in that relationship in every possible way, and he does the bare minimum. And you keep asking him maybe to do things, and he's not really doing them. But you're not really aware of how strong you are and how you're basically managing the whole thing. And if you were to leave tomorrow, you would be absolutely happy and unburdened by him sort of being such a burden to you, because you were made to think that being chosen and having a man next to you is more important than anything. So you would never lose that from your life, because what is the world going to think? How are people going to view you if you had a failed marriage or all of that? So you take it upon yourself to kind of fix this relationship and show up for this person that is not showing up for you, and you're downplaying your skills, and you are placing this man in the center of your world. You of course you definitely baby him and you mother him and you do all of that, and he needs you in a way that feels validating for you, because you've not been able to separate being needed from being loved. And you think that because he needs you, because he calls you all the time, because he can't do one thing on his own, that he loves you. But in reality, he just needs you because he's not growing up to become an adult, which is another thing that you're doing in most of your relationships. You are unfortunately enabling people to continue to not show up for you because you put in the labor to make up for the fact that they don't show up. Again, all stemming back to the fact that you do not understand the power that you hold outside of being in this married life that you were supposed to be put in, and looking a certain way and feeling a certain way, and then you take it upon yourself to fix it. So if you're not married, what that looks like is that your friendships, your partners, the choices in the people that you have around you are people who are projects, right? You're trying to fix them, you're trying to save them. They don't really show up for you. You are just doing a lot of work, and you're managing everybody. And you're possibly also managing your parents, taking care of them like in a way where it feels like they're your own kids, right? And there's this sense of fear that if you were to say no to them, that you would be bad, right? This lurking feeling of badness when you say no and you choose yourself is very evident, that you've been raised to be expected to perform niceness and goodness so that you are deserving of respect and kindness, which, by the way, you're not really getting, because most people around you don't really value you because they take you for granted because of how much you're doing for them without expecting anything back. Right. The other things that you're doing is you're staying, if you have relationships, you're staying too long because you continue to think that if I perform more, if I do more, if I try more, blah, 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 it's going to change. He's going to change. Never happens. You end up drained. But it is very difficult for you to, again, step out of that idea of what would it look like if I was just on my own. You cannot fathom being alone, because in the image of in your head, you have to be partnered and live this life that you were told is the life that you're supposed to live, or else something is wrong with you. And you wouldn't want the world to see that something is wrong with you. Did I miss anything? You shrink, you apologize, you self-edit. Especially when you're in public places, you're just not authentic. You don't know who you are. You are constantly performing because you're afraid that somebody's going to see you and they're going to judge you negatively. They're going to say, she's bad, she's mean, she's a bitch. Oh no, if somebody calls you that, you're going to be feeling guilty for eternity. And so these are some of the signs, some of the things that are showing up in your day after being raised in households that are oppressive. And one very powerful thing, if I was to scrap everything that I've just said and give you just the two most important things that are sort of all of this is based on, is two things. First of all is that you do not feel worthy. And I have videos talking about how we were conditioned out of our worth. And you are beginning to feel like an invisible person because you are invisible to yourself. You've never known who you are. You've never gotten in touch with the woman that you are. You've never gotten in touch with your power, with your desires. You have no idea. If I was to ask you, what do you want? Most of the times, we don't know because we were never asked. It was never about what do I want? It's about what do they need? What should I do? How are they perceiving me? All of that was filtering how you show up, not what I want, what I need, right? So, which is why you struggle so much with setting boundaries and all of that. So how do we start deprogramming ourselves? Well, we start a deprogramming journal where you are writing in it every day based on what you're understanding and allowing these observations to expand, finding out where you're still shrinking and who taught you you're too much and all of that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make a free journal for you, Deprogramming journal. It's going to be in the description links. Take it, but use it. Use it and use it daily, and devote yourself to a practice in which you're sitting down with yourself. Because as I've been saying, and I also said it in the past video about this topic, you need to figure out that you have a self and who that self is, who you are, what you like, what you want, what you need, all of that makes you, you have to sort of figure it out. And that happens through, of course, going to therapy and talking to people that understand us and help us and guide us, right? But also through doing a lot of introspection with ourselves, right? So finding yourself is how you will self-actualize, rather than thinking what patriarchy is sort of instilled in your mind, that the quick path to self-actualization is A, be chosen by man, and B, have his children. That is not self-actualization. Far beyond that, right? So that's not really it, but that's on you to decide how you can incorporate more things in your life that fulfill you and actualize the immense potential that you have, the potential that nobody wanted you to know that you have. But hopefully I can help. I'll see you soon.